Hello and welcome to This Week in MLS. I'm your host as always, Eli Lesser. Today I am joined by special guest Braden Wadenow. How are you, Braden?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
I am great. Braden is a Portland Timbers fan who lives in Kansas, so that's pretty dope. Remember, if you're tuning in, follow my Instagram at This Week in MLS. Very simple. Also, use my promo code This Week in MLS in all caps for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek and 15% off any purchase at onthevolleyapparel.com. We have a lot to discuss today, Braden, so let's hop right into it. And we're gonna dive right into probably the biggest topic of the week, and that's Fernando Adi and Fatai Alashe joining FC Cincinnati. What do you think about this, Braden?
Well, as a Portland fan, over the past 5 years, we have witnessed Adi score goals. 54, I believe. He was the all-time club goal-scoring holder for Portland. So the league knows who he is. We know what he can bring to the table. And I think just him being at the top made Cincinnati such a better side as it already was. And then adding the other additions to the team, building around Adi as your top player and your big man, it's just going to be a force to reckon with, especially with the way that the league is moving where it's more fast-paced. Players like Adi really aren't covered as much as like a faster player. He's more built than speed.
And so what do you think about Adi becoming a designated player for FC Cincinnati? Do you think he was the right choice as their first designated player?
I think he was the best choice, to be honest. I mean, the deal was mutual between Portland and him. He was an amazing player, and I think, honestly, he could probably make any lineup in the league as it is. So a team that's not even in MLS already to make a big move like they have, Cincinnati's showing that they're ready to compete, and Adi was a big step into how they're going to perform in the next season.
Yeah, and to think that he's going to spend the rest of the season in USL is pretty interesting. I think there's going to be some great domination there in the USL, and I think it is nice that he is spending that time in Cincinnati before they move up to MLS, kind of get a feel of the vibe. I know there were rumors of him being loaned out to Montreal. Those are not true. He will stay in Cincinnati, and I'm excited to see what he will do in Cincinnati. I have a question about Cincinnati for you, Braden. Do you think Cincinnati is going to be closer to an Atlanta or a Minnesota United when coming into MLS?
So, before the signing of Adi, I would have said closer to Minnesota. You know, Minnesota definitely did not start their MLS off right, losing 5-1 in their first game and conceded, 9 or 8 goals in 2 games?
Yep.
So, they did not get a good start. However, with the way Cincinnati is, I don't see these two guys being the last people they sign. I actually see them signing more MLS talent after the season is over, increasing their odds to be more like Atlanta. They're not going to be as flashy, but they're also not just going to be walked over in a joke, kind of like Minnesota United has been looked at by the majority of the fan base. So I don't think they're going to be as hot and as electric and definitely not have the stadium capacity like Atlanta. But I don't think that they're just an easy team to look over because they are expansion.
Yeah, with Cincinnati, we are going to see a wild fan base. They won't have the same seating capacity as Atlanta, but at the same time, they have a lot of fans and a lot of hardcore fans there in Cincinnati. So that's going to be very dope.
Yep, and it's just how the fans react. Honestly, though, at this point, a lot of teams are known for their fan bases, and they reflect, especially in MLS, they reflect on how their fan base performs for them. They get a feed off of it, unlike in some other leagues. So with the way that their fans are, I don't see them really failing as much as some people might perceive an expansion team to be.
Yeah, so my last question about FC Cincinnati before we go on to a different topic. What do you think the rise of FC Cincinnati and MLS means for the Columbus Crew, who are, they could be on their way out?
My dad lives in Ohio, and he lives about an hour away from Columbus, and he's not a big soccer fan, but they're already discussing what's going to happen in that situation. They're already looking like there's no longer going to be a Columbus Crew. However, they brought their boy back today from Orlando. So, if they can get back on track, I don't see them leaving. But if Cincinnati starts to be the more successful club in future years, I'd say they're heading to Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to a Ohio rivalry. I know that might not necessarily happen, but hey, I want the Crew to stay. I think most hardcore MLS fans like you and I want the Crew to stay.
As a Timbers fan, I want them to stay so we can get a goal in 28 seconds again.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the best thing.
Yeah.
Best thing they've ever done.
Yeah, many Crew fans still salty about that. I'm just going to kick out all the FC Cincinnati stuff right now. So they extended the contract of head coach, Alan Coach.
Great idea. Great choice.
Yeah. They extend him through 2020, meaning he will make the jump from the USL to MLS with Cincinnati. So I think that's a great move. You have a guy that's been there since the beginning of the club, and he deserves this promotion because he's been killing it in Cincinnati.
And also, even if, let's say, he fails, I've read a report where they were looking at Caleb Porter, Portland's old head coach. He's a great coach in himself. I mean, let's look at it in every single season he was with Portland, he only missed the playoffs once, and he won them an MLS Cup. Like, it wasn't like the team wanted him to leave last season. He said he just didn't want to be like in Portland anymore. It had nothing to do with he was a bad manager or anything. He just wasn't there in the mind, I guess, with Portland anymore. It just wasn't the same connection as years before. And I think a lot of that had to do with like the leaving of Adi. So I think no matter what happens to Cincinnati, I think eventually Caleb Porter might fit into that team as well.
Most definitely. We're going to move on to the weirdest transfer of the week. Probably the weirdest transfer of a lifetime. Like, this came out of nowhere, in my opinion. Philadelphia Union winger Eric Ayuk is set to sign with Turkish side. I don't know how to pronounce it. Trabzonspor. It's the club that Fabian Castillo went to. And that was a big move then. But this seems a little random because the 21-year-old has not made a first-team appearance with Philly since October of 2016. What can you make of this transfer?
To be honest, I did not know who he was, and he played for Liverpool. As soon as I saw the name, I'm like, yeah, I don't really know who that is.
Yeah.
But Seattle's always one of those teams that knows how to use the tools that they're handed. I mean, Clint Dempsey would not make it really in another club, but they make it work. So I'm excited to see how this guy works out for them. And plus, they're in a mid-season push, so they could use all the help they could get.
Yeah, so let's go on to another interesting one. FC Dallas have signed former homegrown defender Moises Hernandez. The 26-year-old was with Dallas from 2010 through 2016 and was recently reported to be training with the team. So this isn't out of the blue, but what are your thoughts on this one? Bringing a guy back who was with the team for many years but never really broke out with the club.
Well, it's all up to him, to be honest, because like he still has that mindset like he wasn't good enough. So I feel like players like him have a little chip on their shoulder, and he's got a lot to prove, not only to himself, but the club as a whole. Like, hey, you guys slept on me once, don't sleep on me again, or I'm going to like make you pay. And I think something like this is just, it doesn't really happen a lot in sports where a player does come back to a club that kind of did him wrong. So I think that if it pays off, all credit to Dallas, but at the same time, he's also going to have it in the back of his head that, hey, I have other options there, not just here.
That's very, very interesting. I don't know how Hernandez will fit. I'm not sure he will get the playing time he might be hoping for. I don't know. I don't necessarily think this was the best move for Hernandez, even though he is back at the MLS level.
Yeah. Well, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you do have to start somewhere. And he is kind of entering the prime of his career. He's 26 now. I mean, before he was still very young.
He's not exactly a young gun anymore.
Yeah. He has more experience. He went off, experienced different lifestyles and playing styles, and now he's back. So we'll see what he could bring. Not sure how much it is. So next, Chicago Fire fans on my page have been roasting the Fire for not signing a playmaker, a cam, specifically. But according to reports, the Chicago Fire are close to signing Moroccan youth international midfielder Amine Bassi, who is a cam. The 20-year-old currently plays for Ligue 1 side Nancy. which is a very interesting name. I don't know how that is a team name. But what do you make of this? They do have a guy. They have a Cam here, and he's 20 years old. And he's playing in League 1. What do you think of this?
I think that's a great look for American soccer. Also, Chicago has been struggling the past few seasons. They aren't the team that they once were. They tried everything with Schweinsteiger, and, they didn't win the World Cup, so it's kind of a failure on them. They didn't
That
win
is
the World
true.
Cup with Schweinsteiger. So, I think Chicago fans should just be hoping and praying. They shouldn't be hating on this guy if it doesn't play out, because it's not necessarily his fault. But at the same time, he's young, and if he's an electric player, he'll bring more people to the stadium to see them play, and he could be a great thing for the league.
Yeah, when you look at Bossy, you see a lot of potential. And this man is already playing in League 1 at the age of 20. I think this would be a fantastic addition for Chicago, who do need that extra oomph right now. You can't just rely on Katai and Nikolic.
And the East is just getting harder and harder, and more pieces are being added every single week, it seems like, to the top teams. And meanwhile, the mid-table teams and the low teams, you really don't hear a lot about. So
yeah,
this could honestly make or break a couple seasons for the Fire.
I really hope so, because they're a team that does deserve to get over that hump again. This is an interesting one. So this has to do with your home state club. And when you think of Sporting Kansas City, especially in recent years, you think of a lights-out, fantastic defense. And according to reports, Celta Vigo center back Andreu Fontas will leave his Spanish side to join Sporting Kansas City. He is 28 years old. What do you make of this transfer? Or potential transfer?
The league that he comes from, that means that he's played against the likes of Ronaldo, against Messi. But at the same time, he's 28 years old, and really Sporting... I know Sporting has been suffering lately, but don't they have Opara, and they have Opara and Beasler? So I'm looking more in the future, what's going to happen with them, because it's going to be a position battle, but I'd love to see how his play style brings them, especially since Sporting has been struggling. I think that a defender of his quality could, I wouldn't say change their whole team around, but they're looking at they might slip out of the playoffs, but if they get a player like him, he can save them.
I'm going to have to agree with you. At the same time, I might disagree slightly on pushing Ike Opara and Matt Beasler out of the way, because those center backs are still effective. Ike Opara won the Defender of the Year last year.
I agree completely. Even though I do not root for Sporting, I talk to all my friends, and I love the Beasler brothers. His brother plays in RSL. And then I love Opara. Opara is just a big, heavy force, and that's what you want in a defender. That is what every team is looking forward to having.
I was thinking, why not just go 3 at the back? If you have those 3 elite center backs, you could do 3 at the back. And I think with Sporting Kansas City and Tim Melia at goal, I'd be comfortable with that. And Graham Zusi could push back up the midfield. I know he's been playing right back the past couple of seasons. He could go back into the midfield. Sinovic could go in the midfield as well. I'm thinking if they sign Fontas that he could just be a third center back, and they kind of shift the formation a bit.
I agree. But going back to that 3 at the back formation, whenever I went to Toronto for Sporting Kansas City, once Sporting scored the goal, they scored, 2 goals in 4 minutes, bringing them 2-1 up. After they scored that, their defense looked like it had no chance in stopping Toronto, and Toronto eventually got the goal. They just kept going after them, and it just didn't look like Sporting was at that level to play. They couldn't even handle it with 4 center backs or 4 backs. I don't know if that 3 at the back would necessarily work for them with how much they have been struggling.
We'll just have to wait and see how good Fontas could be for Sporting Kansas City, or if this transfer does go through, which it looks like it will. I'm 95% sure it will.
Oh, well, we saw Ronaldo leave Real Madrid, so any transfer is possible.
Oh, yeah. So you're saying Messi will come to the MLS?
Messi's going to Milan.
That'd be interesting. All right, so on my account, we had this number 9 elimination game. Now we're doing a number 10 elimination game. The votes are in, and the fans voted Bradley Wright Phillips as the best MLS striker. What do you think of this? Do you agree or not?
Agreed. who has been more. He has been the most consistent striker the league has seen in the past recent years. I mean, there is great strikers in the league, but he has. I know he's had the help of Sebastian Giovinco, definitely, and Toronto's been a good side. But if you look at how Toronto was when he was out, it's not hard to tell who is the key to that team. Toronto last season, when he was healthy, they were dominating teams, and now are they still last place in the Eastern Conference?
No.
And he came back and he scored. I mean, 100 goals, and he's an amazing striker. I agree completely.
Yeah. I mean, we have Bradley Wright Phillips, who came to the Red Bulls 5 years ago as just a trialist. No one had any. I mean, this was like his last chance at remaining professional, and not only did he make the team, but he made the team better. And 5 years later, he has 100 goals in MLS. So I can't really disagree with the fans for picking this. I am questioning the legitness of this vote, as Joseph Martinez was kicked out pretty early. And, I mean, he's tearing it up for Atlanta. But a lot of fans that aren't Atlanta fans are kind of against Atlanta in a way. So.
And I just realized I made a mistake. I thought you said, I don't know why I thought you said Hosey Altidore. I think Hosey. So I do disagree, actually. I thought we were.
Bradley Wright Phillips. Yeah, I wanted to say something, but Bradley Wright Phillips.
Yeah, after we start talking, I like Phillips. I know one of my buddies watching this is a New York fan and he hates him, but he is still a great striker. I agree, but I disagree with what the fans say. I think it's Hosey at the end of the day.
Interesting. So why Josie Altidore?
Well, back-to-back MLS Cups they've made an appearance in. He's been one of the best strikers that we saw in the league. I mean, maybe his goals and everything don't really stand out as much as Bradley Wright Phillips, but if I'm all about that possession play and the big guys controlling the ball and controlling the play, and that's something that whenever I've watched Josie play, I've noticed that's what he does, and that's what I loved. Like Audie, for instance, us Portland fans, that's what he did for us, and I love seeing players like that, controlling the ball and controlling the field. It's just, I know Bradley Wright Phillips does it, but Bradley Wright Phillips has never brought his team a championship or even to an MLS Cup.
That is true, I guess. Let's move on now. So it's pretty much announced that the 2019 MLS All-Star Game will be in Orlando. What do you think of this? We don't know the opponent yet or what the format will be, but what do you think of Orlando being the host city?
Well, Orlando is a big city in America, so it's going to get a lot more views than somewhere as like a Columbus market or like a smaller market. So the Florida market is very big, so I think it is a great look for MLS. But we talked about it earlier. I know we push it in a year ahead, so we don't know how Orlando's going to be. But I like seeing teams that have passionate fans showing up week in, week in. And, I want to see the teams be successful. That way it's not like a hostile environment. And I'm not saying Orlando is, but with the way that fans have been, and I've saw them and how they've talked about their fans, I just don't know if that's where I'd necessarily want to see an MLS Cup whenever the fans can't even appreciate their home team, let alone the whole MLS as a whole.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Orlando is a very interesting choice. With all-star games in all sports, whenever there is a new venue, the leagues like to have their all-star games in that venue, and Orlando City Stadium is very new. I believe it came into play last year, so it does kind of make sense, in my opinion, to have it in Orlando.
It is one of my favorite stadiums in the league.
Yeah, I think it's gorgeous.
Nice, they did a great job. I love their color scheme of it and everything. So they did the right thing. And I know that's what they're pushing for. It's like, hey, this is the new stadium. Look at what we've done.
Oh, yeah. So I forgot about this Cincinnati deal. But just a couple days after bringing in Audie, Cincinnati signed Swedish international left back Pa Kanote. I hope I pronounced that right. To an MLS contract. This is a man who is in Serie A at the age of 24. And now he's going to Cincinnati. What do you think of this deal?
How would you say it was? 24?
24.
So he's kind of young. Serie A, I love what that league's all about. I love that young talent, so I'd love to see more talent come here. And we've noticed Giovinco. look at how he came in from Serie A, and now look at what he's doing in MLS. I know they play two completely different roles, but at the same time, you gotta I'm not gonna just be blinded by it. I'm gonna be hyped for him because he's Swedish. I like Swedish players. I don't know a lot, but all of them I do know. They're not bad players at all, and they're nice people, so they work good in almost anything, any team. So I think this was a good signing on them. I mean, they've got a young talent too, just like we were talking about with FC Dallas and what was the other team? Was it Cincinnati we also talked about? Who brought in that 20-year-old? No, Chicago.
Oh, Chicago, yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Young talent is soon to be the dominance in the league, and people don't realize that. Unless you thoroughly watch MLS, you don't realize that it's not the retirement league. It's a fairly young league, to be honest. It's not that old like people deceive it to be. So these young talents are soon to be the future of the league. It's just people have to give it time.
Yeah. So we have a few more topics before we wrap up our show. MLS All-Star Game. Just like a quick recap, Juventus went up in the 21st, then Joseph Martinez scored a very hardly grinded goal. Very proud of him for that. Then MLS lost in pens, 5-3. What do you take away from this All-Star Game?
Well, I took away that this will be the last time that we see an American team playing a European team.
That's what I hope.
I've saw it on your comment section. A lot of people did not really. They said it was a good game, but it was just not as enjoyable as maybe an NBA All-Star game. You want to see the actual competitive play of teams that are players that do not like each other and that they do not want to play with one another. They want to play against each other. So I saw the rumors about playing against the Mexican League. That would be a great thing, especially because of how Toronto went down this year in the CONCACAF Championship. That is firing all MLS teams because we've never won that tournament yet. So MLS teams a lot of players are probably licking their chops at the chance to play against their best 11 against our best 11.
Definitely. I think that would bring the competitive vibe that this All-Star Game and All-Star Games across all sports are lacking. Don Garber said it in the MLS halftime show. MLS is the league of innovation. This is how they could take that next step forward. And I think this would be huge for both Liga MX and MLS. And I really hope this happens. Our next rumored signing, according to reports, yes, this is another Sounders one. The Seattle Sounders are expected to sign Peruvian international winger Paulo Hurtado this week. What do you make of this? Seattle already brought in Rui Diaz this transfer deadline. What do you think about Hurtado now coming to the team?
I think it can either go one of two ways. They can either do what they did 2 seasons ago and push this completely around and make an MLS Cup push, or they can just let their whole lineup go and no player is satisfied because they don't know if it's their last time to play, so they're going to be less motivated and it can crash and burn. We're at that point of the season where every single point that you get matters in the playoffs. So if something doesn't go right with this transfer and other players aren't happy, it won't be a pretty sight in Seattle.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see on this one. And I think Hurtado would be fantastic for this team because sometimes you get some inconsistency from guys like Ladero and Clint Dempsey. Having Hurtado there would bring more to this club. I don't think this move could really have a negative impact, especially because he will have that chemistry already with Rui Diaz, who might need some help going to a new nature and a new team.
I agree. You just have to hope that other people's egos do not get in the way of the team as a whole.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Speaking of egos, Justin Merrim is back in Columbus. What do you make of this?
Love it.
I love this move.
I want the crew to stay. He was their man. Orlando did not perform for them. I know that a lot of people in Columbus missed him, and then a lot of people in Orlando were talking trash on him, and I'm glad to see that he is back in Columbus.
Oh, definitely.
That is probably my favorite transfer that has happened this year.
I definitely believe so, and I thought he would be the difference maker in Orlando. But clearly, sometimes the location you're in, the situation you're in, the system you're in just doesn't help you at all, even if you are just the greatest player. And I believe Justin Merrim is a fantastic winger. Columbus is where he belongs. And Columbus also need a bit of a push to remain relevant in the Eastern Conference. And I think Justin Merrim does it for them. They've been lacking goals and assists from their wingers this season. And adding Justin Merrim back to the picture can only help them, really.
And I think Columbus fans are starting to appreciate what their their management is doing for the team. They're not just sitting back and just letting the team progressively die. They're trying to make a move in order to save their season. And they're showing that, hey, we want this to work just as much as you do, because a lot of the fans felt betrayed after what happened this past offseason with the rumored move. So I feel like this gives a little bit more hope to Columbus fans that they aren't going to be leaving them anytime soon.
Most definitely. This was an interesting one and a surprising one for me. LAFC completed the signing of Brazilian right defender, so by right defender I mean right center back or right back, Danilo Silva. And Silva will be joining LA on a 5-month loan. He is 31 years old. I don't really know what to think of this move because I think LAFC is pretty set defensively on the right side. You have Walker Zimmerman playing right center back, and then you have Steven Beitashour, who has been on my show before, at right back. So I don't know what to make of this move. What do you make of this move, Braden?
I think this is just maybe let's say something happens along the season, they're just having a backup plan, but also with his age, he has experience, so he can maybe be a possible, I'm not going to say a bench role player, but he can definitely motivate players, because he's not, I don't think he'll get starting time, but he'll come on as a sub, and if he does prove it, it's going to motivate more players. And with his age, it's just a reliability, and LAFC is going to be making a playoff push. We all know this. So I think they're more looking in case something happens in the future, we have a guy that we know we can trust, instead of some expansion signing or another player that hasn't really necessarily proved himself in the league, but we still have faith in. It's just they're looking for reliability. That's all I can really say about this.
Yeah, definitely. So another LAFC thing that happened is we learned that Mark-Anthony Kaye, their midfielder, will be out 4 to 6 months after undergoing ankle surgery from an injury sustained during last week's El Tráfico game, which I was at. Him being out 4 to 6 months does mean he will be out for the rest of the season. It's always tough to see a guy like Mark-Anthony Kaye go down because he was such a grinder. He had to earn his spot this season, and he did, and he was so good for LAFC. What do you think this loss means for LAFC, Braden?
They're still going to be a good side, but with any team that is successful, they have a core piece that can control the momentum, and if a player like him is out and he fought so hard for their team, they're going to be missing that positive attitude on the field, and that's something that you're going to need in MLS, because unlike other leagues, we have a playoff where it doesn't matter how good you do in the regular season if you don't perform it in the postseason, and you need those positive figures to make an impact on the field and off the field. So it's not something you want to see, but this is whenever we were talking about LAFC has got to be tested eventually. This is where they're going to be tested. They're going to be losing one of their best players, per se, on the field. So I'm interested to see how they can react, because they are the new team and everyone's so hot on about them. I just want to see how they can react to losing a top player on their team.
Yeah, well, now they do have Andre Horta coming in. Let's see how that works out for them. It didn't work out in the El Tráfico game, as he did kind of give away the tying goal, but that's okay. Andre Horta, once he gets match fit, he should be very good. I mean, we're talking about a player who won midfielder of the month a couple times in the Portuguese league, which is a very, very good league. And he's 21 years old, so this could be a great signing for LAFC.
Yes, it could be. I'm excited to see what happens with them. They may not be my favorite team, but I welcome any expansion team that does come into the league, because it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, most definitely. And some of the recent expansion teams have done very well. Atlanta's doing well. LAFC's doing well. Hey, Minnesota's a very under-the-radar team right now in the Western Conference. I wouldn't be surprised if they slip in last second.
And this is what, New York FC's fourth year?
Yeah.
And they are always one of those teams you have to look out for. I mean, expansion teams have been the go-to lately for fan picks. Maybe in Minnesota, I wanted to see them succeed so much last year, and so I'm happy to see that they are finally finding their way in this league.
Darwin Quintero, man, I'm telling you, that man's a beast.
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be our last topic of the episode. New England Revolution finally signed someone. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting. They have signed English defender Michael Mancienne on a free transfer from Nottingham Forest in the English Championship. The 30-year-old has also played for Chelsea, QPR, which is Queen Park Rangers, and Hamburg. What do you make of this signing?
Anybody from Chelsea that has left has improved their career drastically, and we saw that with plenty players. We see it in every league, and we saw it again this year. So, if we take that with a little bit of grain of salt, he has all the potential in the world to be the best player in this league, apparently. So, it's going to be exciting to see how it plays out. And New England, it's always been there. I feel like they're that one fan group that nobody hates, but nobody really loves them anymore. But they're just there. And we want to see them succeed, but we don't expect it at the end of the day. So let's just see how this plays out. I'm not going to count him out, but it's not an easy league to play in like most people think.
Yeah, I mean, the New England Revolution are actually at a very interesting spot because they are right there at the red line. I believe they're slightly above the red line right now.
Oh.
Which is absolutely insane given the fact that the Eastern Conference is just so stacked. I do think New England needs that center back, that really dominant center back, and this guy could be the center back. Apparently, he was the captain for a little bit at Nottingham Forest, so that's got to mean something, right?
I agree, and if I've learned anything while watching MLS, I'm not going to say I've been watching the league for years, but I've noticed a lot of teams that have won MLS Cup, their defenders aren't young guys. They're normally 30 years old or older. So,
that is true.
Because when Portland won, Nat Borchers retired a year after, and Liam Ridgewell we haven't really saw because his age has finally caught up. And they were one of the best defenses. I'd heard that MLS, most people that watch MLS say that's one of the best defenses they've ever saw.
Yeah.
Was Portland in 2015, and they had Alvis Powell and Jorge Villafania. They had two young guys and two old guns. So those old guns have learned how they can control the league. So I'm not going to write off a 30-year-old whenever players like that can control a team completely.
Yeah, think about Seattle. Chad Marshall's a veteran. Roman Torres is a veteran. With Toronto, you have Drew Moore, who's in his mid-30s now. Justin Morrow, he's 30 now. You see with these clubs that have won the MLS Cups in recent years, you've had these veteran defenders. So I'm not saying New England will make the MLS Cup because of this signing, but hey, he's got to do something.
He fits in with the MLS system, we can say.
Yeah, he'll fit in.
He won't be an odd gun like most people think.
Yeah. So that wraps up our show. I promise I'll have more shows for you guys as the summer winds down. Thank you, Braden, for joining.
Thank you, man. I had a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'm going to let you go right now.
All right, man. See you later.
Awesome. So, fans, do you guys want more We Stand United? Do you want Lesser Leagues with Eli Lesser, which is our show about the USL and NASL, or now just the USL? If so, let us know. DM me. Comment in the chat box. Just let us know. I'm willing to do anything for you guys. You guys have been so great for me. I'm Eli Lesser, and I leave you with When I Come Around.